I've been pondering this question lately, asking myself a specific question in the midst of all that we are going through. There's a lot going on. I'm Craig, by the way. This is Illuminated Soul. I really hope you're doing well. We're all still dealing with COVID and its wide-range impact on all spheres of life. Many are still reeling from the unfortunate effects of that crazy polar vortex most of the nation got hit with. And then there's all the other stuff that you have going on in your personal life. And in the midst of all of this stuff, I've been feeling this thing, and I haven't been able to name it. You know, like you buy a puppy and you just start chucking names at it, you know? Charlie, Ralph, Rover, Frosty, and then one of them just sticks. That's what I've been trying to do with this emotional sensation that I've been paying attention to, and I've been trying to name it, but the names haven't been sticking. Is this anxiety? No, not really. Well, what about worry? That's it. No. I know. Insecurity. No, not insecure. What is this I'm feeling? And then I finally asked, is this grief I'm feeling? And wow, that's it. Grief. And I wondered why? Why grief? Why that? And I realized it was right under my nose, and you probably already know this, but it's because there's a true sense of loss lately. We all have been through a long season of loss to varying degrees, but we are all feeling it globally, nationally, and where you are. And where there is loss, there is, however small it may be at times, grief. So in the midst of all of this, if you find yourself feeling this particular emotional sensation, not knowing what it is, I invite you to ask, is this grief I'm feeling? And watch what happens. Grief is so interesting. It's subtle. You know, it's chameleon-like. It can take on the form of other emotional sensations like sadness, anger, confusion, agitation, indifference, anxiety, even fear. C.S. Lewis said, "No one ever told me that grief felt so much like fear." And then we have the wonderful words of Jesus. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. In Aramaic, mourners carry the sense of those who long deeply for something to occur, those troubled or in emotional turmoil, or those who are weak and in want from such longing. Can you resonate with that? I sure can. Are you deeply longing for something to occur and inwardly troubled, having not seen the arrival of what you're longing for? Yes. And that sounds like loss and grief to me. Of course, we can apply that to our longing for Jesus to return. Right on. And then there's just all of the other stuff that you and I find ourselves longing for, inwardly troubled, having not seen the arrival of what we are longing for. Not just for us, but for our loved ones. And Jesus says, blessed are those in this deep longing. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. I like to put it this way. Blessed are those who actively feel the grief. So if the answer is yes to the question, is this grief I'm feeling? Go ahead and feel it. Release it. Let it out. Wailing, crying, deep sighing. You might have words for it. You might not. As Seneca said, light griefs can speak. Great ones are dumb. Meaning, at times, words just don't suffice for the deep, great griefs we experience in life. Is this grief I'm feeling? I've been amazed at how often the answer is yes. And I've found that most likely your body will answer first, right? When I asked, Craig, is this grief I'm feeling? My eyes watered up. I was so surprised. I'm like, what is that? It was my body saying, yep, finally, we know what this is. Now we can begin to acknowledge it, admit it, release it. What I mean by your body will answer first sometimes, it's upon asking the question, pay attention to how your body responds and from where. The stomach, shoulders, heart, throat, head, guts, lungs, anywhere. You just pay attention because your body knows and might just hand you the answer by way of a physical sensation. And then you can take that to God in prayer, words, tears, sighing, silence, screaming, laughing, whatever it might be. Again, is this grief I'm feeling? Let it surface if it is. Let it do what it wants to do. It wants to rise, express, and release. It wants to do that. The origin of the word emotion is derived from other words that mean motion, to set in motion and move the feelings. You've heard me say it before on Illuminated Soul. Motions are in motion. You have the word motion in the word emotion, right? And the very nature of grief and any emotion for that matter is movement, flow, and release. Suppressed and denied, left to become ingrown, a toxic assault upon our very selves, our spirit, soul, and body will take place. Wow. Is this grief I'm feeling? If so, let grief do what it wants to do, so blessing can do what it wants to do, what Jesus wants to do, loves to do, and can't help but do. Comfort, soothe, console, and reassure. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And if asking yourself, is this grief I'm feeling not helping you, then try asking yourself, do I feel loss right now? Do I have a sense of loss? Do I feel like I've lost something? And if the answer is yes, then you can see to what degree grief might be present. Remember, I said earlier that in Aramaic, mourners carry the sense of those who long deeply for something to occur, those troubled or in emotional turmoil, or those who are weak and in want from such longing. It might help, thinking about that, it might help to write it down. Write down what you have been deeply longing for to happen, and what emotional sensations you find attached to that deep longing. Write down what you feel you have lost and how you feel about it, and then bring it before God alone by yourself with Him or with a trusted friend or counselor, and make it a prayer. Lament, a prayer of longing as you place your longing into the hands of Jesus, who happens to be the only answer to our deepest longing, the longing of all longings, right? And I'm not saying, and then everything will be great, right? I wish it was that easy. But at least it's a way to process and acknowledge and release and not resist. You know, the goal is to be real with what we feel, properly name it, commune with God over it for your sake and for the sake of others. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. According to Dr. Neil Douglas Klotz, some of the ways this specific beatitude can be translated in the Aramaic, they're beautiful. Some of them are, blessed are those in emotional turmoil. They shall lie united inside by love. Here's another one. Healed are those who weep for their frustrated desire. Do you have a frustrated desire? Healed are those who weep for their frustrated desire. They shall see the face of fulfillment in new form. And of course, the face of our fulfillment is the face of Jesus eventually. And then one more. Tuned to the source are those feeling deeply confused by life. Can you relate to that? I sure can. Tuned to the source are those feeling deeply confused by life. They shall be returned from their wandering. It's beautiful. I want to end with the encouragement that while grief is attached at some level to a feeling of loss of some kind, in the loss, there's always something new to gain that's being developed. We often are aware of it. We aren't feeling it, but it's happening. Just as a seed planted in the ground develops, unseen, something is being developed. As writer Anne Royfe states, grief is in two parts. The first is a loss. The second is the remaking of life. The first is a loss. The second is the remaking of life. Please know that in the midst of your loss and grief, the remaking of life, new life, is coming about in you and for you. All right? I sure bless you. And thank you so much for listening to Illuminated Soul. Spread the word about this podcast and others. Go to accessmore.com. There's the free Access More app. So many incredible faith-based podcasts right there. And the app is free. And the podcasts are free. Of course, just dive in and have a ball with all of these incredible podcasts, courtesy of accessmore.com.